And what about you? 2 litre TDI Audi A4 on a B8 chassis. Car broke down, came in on a tow rope there, and crank, no start, but the battery's now dead, so I think he was driving it along with the ignition on so he could steer. And yeah, so we're getting one rotation on the starter motor, so we'll have to put a bit of juice into the battery. So the battery charger's set on mega there, so okay, we'll get a bit of juice pumped in there. So we've got a wee quick scan down there, and it's showing us pretty much nothing important anyway. Glow plug, something there, what's that? Locking fuel cap, and what's on there? Steering assistance. Voltage collapse, so yeah. Okay, we'll let the charger go on for a wee while yet then. Okay, there's a bit of power in the battery now, so I give her a bit of a crank in there. And it's sort of trying to start, but we're just monitoring the fuel pressures here, and as I cranked it, and yeah, fuel pressure's getting up rightly on the high pressure side. So that should be enough for a start. Those big numbers. So yeah, it's actually nearly trying to start. But I think I can see something at the front of the engine. I've taken the time covers off just to make sure everything's rotating okay. Like so the belt hasn't slipped or anything like that. So I'll set the camera up at the front of the engine, and I'll give her another crank. So the guy's been driving it for about 2 weeks now, and I told him that was like a temporary repair. We'd need to reseal these injectors, you know, because they'd been unseated and the thing might be blowing by after a while or whatever. So what I did was I put a wee mark on it there, so you can see that white mark in at the plug and on top of the bolt, and it hasn't moved. So that tightening I did was just a guesstimate. It was just by feel, you know. So it all seems good and it's not blowing, but we're going to pull the injectors out, put new bolts in because there are stretch bolts, and reseal the injectors. There's our new bolts and a few seals there, and I've taken the soundproofing stuff off there, so you maybe see that wee mark there better. No. So number 2 injector marked, number 1 injector, because they'll be coated. And we'll get these out. There's a bit sticky. Give it a wee rock back and forth. It should come. And these are loose clearly because, you know, because of what happened, because the bolt loosened up. That wouldn't normally happen. The thing about these is, you know, you have to pull the 2 of them out simultaneously. Number 2 isn't coming just yet. Just need to give it a wee bit of wiggling. There we go. So get you a wee look at this here. Yeah, so look at that. The seal, the copper seal, is very, very thin, and especially in this one, extremely thin. So we'll get all that cleaned up. There's also supposed to be an O-ring on one of these grooves. I think it's that groove there. So I think there's the remains of it. So we'll replace that. So the problem with these injectors blowing by combustion gases is because, I don't know if we can see in there or not, but the sleeve that the injector sits in, you know, it doesn't go the whole way up the rocker cover, so you can see the camshaft and stuff in there, you know. So if it blows by, you're going to get combustion gases, you know, into the engine, and that'll wreck your turbo and what have you, you know. So yeah, what we're going to do is we'll make sure these seats are nice and clean, clean up those injectors, and clean up this area here. And you know, we're going to do an oil change and filter change as well. So yeah, okay. So we need to clean this area up here, the rocker cover as well. These are just grommets, so I don't want any trash getting in there. So I'll maybe block her up, block the three of them up. I'll stick a pen in this one. Give her a bit of a clean up. And we'll clean out these bores the best we can. It's mostly full of oil, actually, you know. Okay, so we'll give her a bit of a light cut with that boy over there, and this is what we've ended up with. So as you can see, I can get you in down there. So not too bad. It wasn't really too bad anyway, but yeah. And then that wee bolt hole there, there was engine oil in it, so I give it a bit of blowout because I don't want the fact there's oil in the threads. That'll affect the torque. So yeah, so okay. Hey, we've cleaned up the injectors. We're going to reuse that clamp and the new bolt, because these are stretch bolts, one use only. And let me see, we'll have a couple of these things. If I can get that in the shop there. Yeah. And another thing that I don't know whether people forget or not, but there's two of these wee black O-rings. Might have mentioned them earlier on, and they go on in that wee groove there. So it just stops the engine oil from getting down in the sleeve. So these wee boys here, and you just need to check they're not going to drop off, and they are, because I've cleaned these up quite a bit. So we don't want them falling off. So a wee trick is a wee tiny taste of grease, a wee spot of grease in between the face. It's fine, and just to hold it in place. Right, so we taste the grease on there. That's not falling off. I've got our O-ring on, so I like to put a wee bit of the white ceramic grease on there. Does that stuff? The manual actually says to put engine oil on it or something, you know. But So okay, I'm happy with that. And don't be touching the tip there. You don't want to wreck that. Right, so these two have to go in together on our clamping piece. So our copper washers won't go anywhere. This feeling in there. So because we'll have those wee O-rings on, they'll just have to click in. So that's us. And we're a new bolt, and we'll just put that into hand tight. Really, I think the manual says 2 Newton meters or something like that. Just for the moment. And then we get our high pressure lines on. And we'll just get our high pressure lines on hand tight at this stage. And the first torque of this is 8 Newton meters. Plus 270 degrees. So that's 390s, as it were. So round to the 9 o'clock. So we've marked there at 12 o'clock. And we'll go around right around the 9 p.m. now. So there we go. And we'll have to remember to tighten our high pressure lines. So they're 25 Newton meters, but tight's tight on them. So it's pretty much self-bleeding this, but it may take a wee bit of cranking, but it should be alright. Oh, it was faster than I expected, but yeah, there we go. So we're going to do an oil change now as well. Car's in for service anyway. There's 170,000 miles in this, but yeah, I'll maybe recommend to the customer that they might want to do the rear 2 injectors as well. Look at those copper washers. There's one there, and yeah, it's very, very thin. All the thickness of it. And well, it wasn't completely blown by, but it's not exactly round in the middle there. And that's the other one. And again, it's very thin as well. So that had clearly lifted, that one. That had lifted off the seat of it, you know. So that was going to blow by on them. And the problem with blowing by in that design, in that particular design, is because the injectors are, you know, in the rocker cover. So if the combustion gases blow by off these seats, then you know, your carbon is going to go into your engine, get stuck in the pickup, and you know, turbo pipes and stuff like that, and it could destroy the engine. So that used to happen to the early Toyota D4D 3 litre engines, where the injector seals were bad, and Toyota changed the injector seals out. But people still recommend that you change the injector seals maybe 100,000 miles or something in those engines, because it can destroy the engine, because the blow by can get inside the engine. That's the whole problem here. So yeah, this is preventative, but we knew that, you know, the car came in initially as a no start, and you know, that's the reason why we changed these. You know, because we knew that the injectors had lifted off the, you know, off the seats. So there we go. So this is the factory information that I was loosely following doing that procedure. Wasn't using any of those special tools there for extraction, but just in case you need to, there's a few wee tips and tricks in here, maybe, you know. So caution: mark cylinder numbers and injectors. They must always be reinstalled in the same cylinders. Observe rules for cleanliness. Plug open connections with suitable sealing caps. Pull return line connections off injectors. To do so, press tabs 1 and 2 down, and at the same time pull up release pin. That can be a bit of a tricky. That's referring to the leak off pipes there, wee plastic connectors there. So you hold 1 and 2 down, you pull the centre up. I was using a pair of sort of clip pliers there to do that. You may have seen earlier on in the video at the start, unplug electrical connectors, and that's basically telling you to unbolt everything, the whole lot there. Risk of damage to the injector if clamping piece is not kept straight, blah blah blah. And that's the pillar that they're using there. It goes on to the high pressure connection on the injector. So yeah, let me see. When installing injectors, following components must be renewed: bolt for clamping piece, copper seal, O-ring for injector bore, O-ring for fuel line, return connection. I did not do that for the return line. Had a look at them, give it a bit of a clean, and reinstalled them. They were fine. Identification marks for cylinder allocation when reinstalling high pressure pipes. High pressure pipes can be reused after performing the following checks. Check taper seats of high pressure pipes for deformation or cracks. Bore the pipe must not be distorted, restricted. Corroded pipes must not be used again. If a used injector is being installed, spray tip of injector nozzle with rust releasing spray. I use card cleaner to clean off the injectors. To remove the old copper seal from, clamp the seal carefully in a vise so that it is just held between the jaws without turning, carefully pull and twist the injector out of the copper seal behind. They just fall off in reality because there's not much left of them usually. Fit new copper seal. That thing there is for installing the O-ring that's halfway up the injector. I just rolled it on my fingers. Lubricate all O-rings with assembly oil, engine oil, or diesel fuel. Before installing, I used ceramic grease. Install injectors, slide clamp on, insert 2 injectors with clamping piece carefully in the bores, hand tighten union nuts. Hand tighten union nuts on high pressure pipes. Make sure connections are not under tension. So that's very important. So you want to clamp the injectors down on the copper seals without forces, you know, on the high pressure pipes. So without the high pressure pipes being tight. So that's why we tighten them sort of last, you know. So you're trying to get the seal on the copper seal. That's the important thing. So you want that nailed down first and then tighten the high pressure lines. Press return line connections carefully over seals on the injectors. Check seal for damage, blah, blah, blah. Right. I think that's it. Bleeding fuel system, checking for leaks. The fuel system is self-bleeding. Do not open the high pressure connections. Some guys do that if they're having trouble, but you know, I only had 2 off there, and you know, usually there's a bit of a crank, a bit of a long crank on it, but you know, usually that's all you need to do. Run engine at idling speed, several minutes, switch off in ignition, check for leaks, and apply a road test. Okay, this is more info here. Now this bit here, caution, when installing a new base engine, so this is for a new engine, it is essential the clamping pieces for injectors are tightened to specified torque. The clamping pieces are only secured hand tight at the factory, so that the injectors can be aligned during installation. So clearly that will not apply to an engine that's already been on the road. So there's the overview there. So you have the grommet that's in the rocker cover. And then number 2 is the copper seal. 3 is the O-ring that goes around the second groove. And then there's a wee O-ring on the leak-off pipes, which I did not renew. I did not renew the grommet there that the bolt goes into. That bolt. So it was all fine to me. Seemed alright, you know. So using a coloured pen to mark allocation of injectors corresponding to the clamping piece and the high pressure pipe to the corresponding cylinder. So yeah, it's worthwhile just marking stuff. You may have noticed I did that with the high pressure pipes with 2 wee dots and 1 wee dot respectively. Right, remove carbon deposits from injector sealing surface, clean injector board in the cylinder with some sort of cleaning kit. So you just clean it out the best you can. There are those cleaning type brushes on the Amazon store there. There's kits for that. So bolt, renew, tighten initially to 2 Newton meters, then screw on union nuts for high pressure pipes, hand tight and align injectors, and then 8 Newton meters plus 270 degrees, which is 3 by 90s, and then you tighten the high pressure pipes. Use a coloured pen to mark injectors corresponding to clamping piece. Pay attention to the marks. Clamping pieces can be reused. Each clamping piece secures 2 injectors. It does indeed. High pressure pipe between the fueling rangers. High pressure pipe can be reused. Check taper the bore of the pipe and coated pipes. So that's the same as before. Install free of stress. There you go. So make sure you're cool. Lubricate threads of union nuts with clean engine oil. So it says that a lot of places there, you know. And 25 Newton meters. So that'll be for the high pressure pipes. The 25 bolt, 22 Newton meters. That's number 10. What's number 10? Oh, that's the bolt holding the fuel rail down. So that's not what we were doing there. So there we go. So anyway, maybe get something out of it. As I say, it is preventative maintenance. This, you know, this is the stop blow by. You know, we knew that the injectors have become unseated as a result of the bolt loosening up. We have seen those bolts snapping, which is what I sort of expected it to be the case. But yeah, it wasn't the case. We got the guy on the road again, but albeit we knew we had to reseal those injector seals. So there you go. Maybe get something out of it. Many thanks for watching, as ever, and all the best. And bye bye. Bye bye. Bye bye, Poppy.